Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the 401 Files. It's an absolute pleasure of mine to be joined by so many like minded people from all around the world. Thank you for joining me for this live. This is the second one that we've done. The first one was such a big hit. So that's all credit to the speakers that we had on. I'm sure that you'll all agree were absolutely amazing. Some of the stories that came through, I just wasn't expecting that at all for the first live stream. So thank you to everybody that did come on and take part in talking and sharing their stories. It's not always easy to do on a channel like the 401 Files, but everybody got a great reception. And if you have been on before, just to those people that was on last week, feel free to jump in again and finish off some of those stories that you was sharing with us. And to anyone that's wanting to get on and share their experiences, maybe you've had an experience with the paranormal, something with the UFO phenomena or extraterrestrials, etc., then please do follow the link as well. And that will bring you into the back where my brother will be able to organize everybody and you can come on and have a chat. That's the main point of tonight's live is to get everybody on here as much as possible and all give everybody a chance to share their stories. So this week has been a crazy week for me. I went to the Awakening Expo. Um, that was in Oldham, and Whitley Strieber there was the main talker. Whitley's a great speaker. For anyone that hasn't heard of Whitley Strieber's experience already, I highly recommend that you buy his book, The Communion. Absolutely great event. It was nice to see some old faces there and meet some new ones as well. So, when you're in these environments, these expo, these conferences, it's always nice to be around be around company that is non-judgmental. They all share the same opinions, same beliefs, etc. There's no ridicule. It's just a real nice environment. So I will be attending more of those in the future. I've got people popping up already in the back, which is really nice. We've got G Star there waiting and Sasha Christie as well. Just to let everybody know, because there is a few things that I want to mention. My brother now will be taking over the Facebook page and group, as well as the Discord that we've just recently set up. So if you guys see any posts from there on the Facebook group or the Facebook page, that isn't me directly. That's my brother working in the background. Everything YouTube related will be me. So comments, etc., videos that I posted will be me. And yeah, like I've already said, if you want to come on and you want to talk, you want to share an experience, or even if you don't want to share an experience, you just want to come on and join the chat, please do follow the link that's in the comments. And we should have a really good, chilled out, laid back live. So I'm going to bring the first person in right now, and this is G. Will be a second. Hi G, how's things, mate? How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, really good, really good. So you been up to much
Good.
lately?
Unfortunately, not. I've still got I've got COVID still.
Oh no,
So
the big C.
yeah. Well, not the big C, but yeah. So I've been a bit under the weather all week, so I've not been up to much. Unfortunately, had the fault session with Andy McGrath on Tuesday though. Managed to still go ahead and do that. And he guested on our show on the Vault. That was really great. And yeah.
I've been meaning to go over there. Actually, I did pop over to your channel today. Stavol, I popped over there, saw that you'd done the interview there with Andy McGrath. Andy McGrath, for anyone who's wondering, is one of the big crypto guys here in the UK. Wrote the book Beast of Britain. Really credible guy. And yeah, I'm definitely going to head over to your channel, G, and check that
Thank you,
interview out.
buddy.
Is it
Thank you.
okay? Is the internet okay? 'Cause I know you've had problems with the internet, etc.
Unfortunately, there was still a few little snaggy issues, but generally nothing as bad as what I've been having problems with. So I think worst of the troubles are behind me.
Yeah. Gee, I'm going to keep you on screen, and I'm going to bring Sasha Christie in as well, and we'll have a little chat until some other people join as well.
Wicked.
Hi, Sasha, are you okay?
Hi.
Can you hear
Hi.
me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, brilliant. I can hear you perfectly fine.
Nice
So
one.
Sasha, what's been going on your channel? Do you just want to tell everybody what you do on your channel?
Well, talk about anything high strange, basically, because
Yeah, and
I've
Sasha,
had
I've been meaning to
kind
ask
of
you this, Sasha.
paranormal existence. Go on.
Yeah, I was just
Sorry.
gonna say, are you more paranormal then, or are you into the extraterrestrial UFO more, or just for
Well,
those that
to be
don't know?
honest, it's all into me, and the only reason I'm interested in it is because it's interested in me, and
Yeah.
trying to figure out what my life actually is. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Because I've
that's
had all this
perfect.
stuff happen, and it's like it makes you think, well, I don't even know what reality is anymore. So
I'm sure there's a
you
lot of
know,
here, a lot of us here that feel that same way as well. So, do you want to just give us a few experiences, Sasha, and how you got into this?
well, the main reason I came to the internet was because of a UFO sighting that I had with my boyfriend Steve in 1997. But we'd gone like on holiday to Wales. We were actually 4 miles from Berwyn. Didn't know anything about Berwyn at the time, but we were like on a mountain in Wales, and it was like February, dark, wet, miserable, and cheap. So that's why we went.
Yeah.
Then on the Saturday night, Steve called me outside because he can see some lights in the sky, which when I first saw them, I thought that's lightning. So I said, that's what, it looks like lightning. And he said, it's not, keep on watching. So we kept on watching. It's coming on and going off and coming on and going off. And it had a definite uniform pattern to it. So as we were watching this, Steve goes in and he gets everybody else out. So there's me, Steve, Danya, that's his sister, and John, their uncle. And Danya's got her son with her, and I've got my son with me. So there's 4 adults, 2 children. We're all out in the garden, and we're looking off into the far distance. And there's this light that's coming towards us that keeps like a ripple like this. So
Yeah.
when it was coming towards us, it was going on and off. But then it kind of, when it got to be directly in front of us, it was just this huge ball of light in the clouds that was kind of rippling sideways. So where there was sort of slight gaps between the clouds, the different densities, it was brighter, and it kind of looked like a big jellyfish in the sky, even though at no point did we think it was actually a living creature. It was just the way that the clouds were that made the lights ripple and look like that.
It's
So
weird though. It's weird that you mentioned living creature because I speak to a lot of people that see these craft. In fact, Justin in Canada, Mountain Beast Mysteries guy here on YouTube, he's been recently recording some balls of light in the sky where he lives,
yeah,
and
I,
he
yeah.
he's told me that they almost look organic, like they are alive. And so I'm hearing this a lot from everybody now.
Funny, I had that conversation with somebody the other day because I've seen those things, and I've seen one in my house, kind of this big, and to me it felt like a conscious living thing.
Yeah.
It just popped into existence with a pop. My fella thought that the security light had come on. He jumped out of bed to go running to look out of the garden, and I was like, "Get back into bed! Get back into bed!" And when he turned around to come back, it popped out of existence. But it was bright enough for him to jump out of bed and think that something was going on outside.
Is he
I was not.
is he a hardcore believer then, or is he
Yeah, well,
skeptical?
we kind of met in a UFO group because he's seen the UFO, and he's had some weird paranormal stuff. His sister was really psychic, so they had loads of mad stuff happening in the house. But yeah, he's had a few. Like he said he woke up one night and there was like this swirling black thing that he could see through, and all he did. You fellas are funny when stuff happens. He said,
Yeah.
so he punched it.
Oh my god.
He
I
didn't
think
know
that's
what else
probably
to
what I'd
do,
do.
so he
I'll
punched
run
it.
away.
Like, so
Paul, I'm
yeah,
just
he's
gonna
like,
sorry, Sasha, I'm gonna let you carry on in 1 second. I'm just gonna bring Paul into the stream as well. This would be nice to
okay,
have
love,
all of us
yeah,
on the screen at the same time.
cool.
Hi
Hi,
there.
Paul. You all right?
Hey,
Hi,
hiya.
Paul.
Hi, mate. You all right?
How is everyone? You okay, Paul?
Oh, all good. Yeah, I've just, I don't know. I've just ate a cream bun. Probably just really done my health a little bit of bad.
Yeah,
Just
I had
earlier.
2 wagon wheels before I came on. I was just like squaring these wagon wheels really quickly.
I had a
Um,
cheese toasty.
Oh,
I had a massive portion of cottage pie.
Excellent. Well,
Yeah, you can't beat a cheese toast.
conversation away from the paranormal, aren't I, with cream buns? So
We're also British
Wish I
cream
could
buns
eat
and
them.
cottage pie. Wagon
So,
wheels.
Jay, listening to
Yeah.
Sasha's story there about these lights that she saw, for anyone that's not aware of this in the comments right now or on this live, G's had an abduction encounter when he was growing up. Would you say, G, that what you saw, the craft that you experienced, would you say it was organic in any kind of way, or was it more, um, was it technologically created? Was it nuts and bolts?
It was definitely 100% technology created. It was, as I mentioned to you when we discussed it, over the years, when I've kind of processed the experience, the only thing I can think of is that to liken it to a drone, because the width of this craft was not, unless, you know, there's a species that's very, very tiny. And when I say very tiny, I mean, you know, sort of 10 inches high, because the craft was so thin, that from my perspective, I can only assume that it was either part of the technology or it was a drone.
Yeah, that's again. I mentioned to Sasha. Sorry, Sasha, you can chime in. Go on.
Well, the big one, we saw a big one coming towards us, but then actually what happened was there was a smaller one on the ground behind us that was a sphere. Now, I could have probably stood up in it, but that's as tall as it was. And I kind of liken that to being some sort of drone, or, you know, like somebody called it, I think, a scout ship or something like that. But yeah,
Paul,
so there was
do you
like
get many
one
accounts?
and then another. Yeah.
Yeah, Paul, do you get many accounts of these craft where they almost seemingly seem impossible for a human to be sat in there or flying this thing around? Do you ever get reports like that? I know that there was the sighting that we saw at Flamborough, me and my brother, we both said the same thing. It was really thin. It almost looked like a breadstick. And when we both saw that, we thought, how can anything be sat in that, flying this thing around? It just didn't seem like it had the space for anything to be flying around. I'm just wondering, Paul, if you get reports like that.
I suppose it's pretty relative, Ben. I mean, how far away were it when you looked up and saw this thing? I mean, because a couple of 100 foot away, it might look like it's impossible. We're talking about Summit sat in it. We're trying to put everything into a box of Sasha, you, and you know, and I'm not being ignorant, but I've just joined and I don't know your other guest's name.
This is G. You can call him G.
You know, so we're trying to fit it, G. We're trying to fit it into what we think would suit us, and these things might not. I don't know. They might not operate anyway like we would think. So it's hard. I mean, I just caught end of it, or as I came in, you were talking about the lights and the possible intelligence that the lights display. And I've thought that for years and years. That's why my website in 202 were called Intelligent Light Forms. Do you know what I mean? Because I feel like there is some kind of awareness to them. I know your sighting, Sasha. I mean, obviously you're expert on your own sighting, but once you become aware of these things, it's almost like there is an interaction. Although many times it's not until it's over that you realise the true extent of what's been happening.
Well, can I say something about, you know, because you're in the east coast of Yorkshire, and all your research is over there. Well, you know, I've got a friend Emma over there, and I stayed at her house. She lived near the Priory. Now, we were having a barbecue one day, and I saw this little white light coming towards us, and it got to the chimney. And I said to Emma, I said, "What's that?" And she's looking, and we watched it. It got to be directly above her house in the, you know, in our view, and it blinked out. It was gone. So that night, I got her binoculars out, and I was looking at the sky at night, and I thought I seen something moving on my left. So I pushed my back up against the wall. I got my arms in, got the binos like that, and I thought, right, I picked a point of reference on my right, and I watched this light. So I've got this in my periphery, and then I watched this light move. So this little light that was moving got that far away from the other one, and the other one flew off as well. So how the hell did I pick that out of all of those thousands of points of light? Why did I pick the one that wasn't a point of light? How? So there's some interaction for sure, because I don't know how that works, and that freaks me out, because it's like, are they in my head? Are they controlling my eyeballs? What the hell? You know, like, you know, I don't really think that they are, but like, you know, it's just too like, I don't understand it, but there's got to be some intelligence. That was an interaction, 100%.
Yeah, I would have. Well, I said I would have thought so. Yeah, I mean, and there's lots of examples of not just spheres of light, but different types of light. There's a guy who's been up to Bempton a few times now. He's quite renowned. He's well known for filming the Northern Lights. He goes all over other countries as well. And he spent 3 days up at Bempton about 2 weeks ago, and hoping to film Northern Lights. Had an unusual experience where he were overcome with fear. And he went back, and I've just got a message off him about half an hour since, and he went back, and I'm believing it's last night. I'll have to check date. As he gets back to car park, he said a beam of light came through trees. I mean, so we're not on cliff tops, we're not out at sea. This is he said to his wife, there's another car coming. He says, but now I've had time to digest what happened. There were no sound of a car. There were no movement in light. He says, and this beam of light came through the tree. He says, I jumped in the car, immediately drove around. There was nothing. So it's unless there's somebody with a torch playing about, which is a possibility, isn't it? But it's not just spheres of light. We've a guy called Pete Biddleston. We've experienced or seen this weird light in the trees before up there ourselves. But this guy, I don't know if I can use his name yet, so I'll have to ask him. And we've got an amazing picture on his jumping from that on his way home on the first visit after being overcome with fear. And he said he went up specifically because he said about a distance away, not too far away, he could see a tall hooded figure or dark figure. I'm saying hooded, I shouldn't do that. Dark figure. He said, and it unnerved me, and I weren't sort of brave enough to go up and look at it or try and see what it was. He said, but I went back, and I'm assuming last night. They've got the message about 30 minutes ago. And he said it weren't there. There was nothing, no landmarks, no posts, nothing to suggest it. But on his way back, the first night, and he's got his camera equipment with him. He said he'd taken a picture at Bempton, and somebody sent me a picture, and I said, that's not Bempton. And I thought, this guy's just making things up. So I contacted him myself, and then he sent me a bit of the lay of the land, and it's between Bempton and Speeton. And when he sent me that, I knew exactly where it was. But this must be pareidolia. We were going to put it on last night, but he's got a facing cloud. It looks like a demon. And I don't normally deal with that because, the Bigfoot cryptid community, somebody will send you a bunch of leaves and they'll see a dog man in leaves. But for all intents and purposes, it's a face. But we know we can see Jesus in a cloud, can't we? We can see angels. But it's a weird thing. I'll try and get a picture up. And I'm rambling again. So go on. Don't let me overtake.
Oh, no, not at all. It blows my mind when I hear some of your stories, Paul, from the East Coast, and that's kind of what's intrigued me out there. Yeah, there's definitely something going on out there, and I operate mainly on the North Yorkshire moors, but when I first went up to like Flamborough Head, I mean, some people will argue this. Some people might say that Bempton is more active than Flamborough, but for me, there's something really strange about standing on those cliff faces at Flamborough. It just feels weird.
Yeah,
and then. I mean, the first night last week when I tried to camp out there, and I saw the local guy that came by. Amazing to just think that the first guy I saw had a story as amazing as that. It's unbelievable. Something definitely is going on out there, and I'd love to know, like you, Paul, what that is. But these sightings do keep coming forward time and time again from that area.
I am listening, but as you're talking, I'm just going to read a bit of this message. I got into the car. Unfortunately, the car was facing in the opposite direction, so my wife never saw it. The beam was pretty solid with equal density, bright magnesium, white, no yellowness. Do you want me to continue with this? And was pretty big, like a wide, solid column. I would guess 30 to 50 feet wide at the base on its scale against the car park width. It covered a good portion of the width of the car park area, and as it is enclosed with bushes, so there is no way it was small by any means. There was no delay in me driving around the car park. One way ring road either as well. He said either, but he means as well. I literally jumped into the car and started it up and drove straight round. There was no car. I drove down the road to the caravan place, turned it round and went all the way back up to check. No car. So, it clear. There's a lot more. It was clearly enough to puzzle him. I wanted to just read you that bit because I don't know about you, Ben or Sasha. I just get tons and tons of messages sent to me. And when I reel these things off, sometimes people might think, he's a good storyteller, that fella. Do you know what I mean? But I've just read it.
So we just had a comment come through, Paul. I'm not sure if you can see that on your screen. It's from Susan71. She says, hello, Paul. Just wanted to let you know how much I enjoyed your book. I can't wait to order book 2.
All right. Excellent. Thank you. Yeah, pleased you enjoyed it. And there won't be any more.
I highly recommend as well. I've recently recently just got Truth Proof for myself, and it's an amazing book with some really credible accounts in there. So anyone wanting to go over there, Paul, you've got a website for these books, haven't you? Is it truthproof.com?
Truthproof.uk.
Yeah, brilliant.
Truthproof.uk, yeah. And yeah, thank you.
No worries. G, so your abduction that you experienced, when you say this thing was like technologically made, what about the beings? Did you encounter the beings on this thing that abducted you? I know that's kind of a personal and a bit of an intimate question, but I'm just trying to.
No, as I said to you, there was a part of what I think was the early part of my experience, but as we've discussed, I can't 100% say there was my memories are linear. But when I was in my room, in my home, that's when I felt a presence, and I thought that I could see one, but it wasn't very clear to me. If you remember, I saw it kind of dash across the room, and it was just really a very fast shadow. But other than that, in the rest of my experience, I didn't see any beings or anybody else.
What was the overall emotion? Did you have emotions of fear there? Did you feel like they were there to harm you? Was you terrified, or was it kind of did they seem like that they were there not to cause you any harm?
It's really hard to say, to be honest with you, because when I remembered and the process of how I remembered about my experience, it made me sick, and it was what I can only describe as shock. And over the years, I tried to really think about whether it was a scary experience or whether it was a benign experience. If I was to say to you it was one or the other, I would still be guessing, because the best way to describe it is numbness, really. Everything throughout the experience was quite numb, quite emotionless, actually. When I remember it back, sorry, go.
Do you? No, I'm butting in here, but do you find yourself questioning it or trying to get further with it on a regular basis?
Yes, I've been doing the channel now for a little while, and one of the things that I've discussed with Ben that I'm trying to pull together is doing a documentary about continuing to find this one piece of evidence that I need to try and find. So, and it would be physical evidence, but it wouldn't be evidence that would solidify it for anybody else. It would only solidify it for me.
Sasha, what's so you said that you've had involvements with these things pretty much your entire life. Do you think it's the same thing coming back to you, or is it different experience every time?
It's different every time. It's even different creatures every time. Like when I was about 15, I drew this thing that I couldn't get out of my head, and it was like a grey, but it didn't have black eyes. It had normal eyes.
Yeah.
It was kind of old looking and had like wispy white hair. And I was drawing it from a thing that I had in my head. And I didn't really understand anything about it at all at the time. And I drew it. And then, you know, looking back, I think, well, that's an alien. Do you know what I mean? But I don't really have an experience to go with the thing in my head to draw it. It was just like an image of this thing. Then in 1992, so I was about 22. No, I was 21. My son was about 5 months old, and I woke up because someone told me to wake up. And when I opened my eyes, I was face to face with this blue thing, like a little fat goblin thing with big black eyes. And I thought that was a dream for like my whole life until I saw Communion, and that thing that comes out from behind the bars. That completely shattered me watching that, because well, it wasn't a dream, was it? You know, and not long after that, I actually had a breakdown, because I'd had the UFO thing in Wales as well, which was so massive. And while I was stood there, because like at one point we were all out, and then we all went back in, and then I decided to go back out on my own. And while I was out on my own, something ran up to me behind me and bumped into my back. Now, I don't know what it was, but it just hit me in the small of my back, and I completely freaked out. It's just run for my life, literally running for my life. In like that was flight, you know, the total caveman reaction. That was it.
Sasha,
Yeah.
do you mind me asking, your experience that you had in Wales? You mentioned that there was quite a few people that saw the craft all at the same time, and I believe some of those were your family members as well.
Well, Steve's family, yeah.
Yeah. Have you all got together since then? Have you all got together and spoken about it at the same time?
Well, we fell out. We all fell out not long after, and I didn't see him for 13 years, and I found them in about 2008. And no, it wasn't 2008. It was later than that. But anyway, me and Steve's never spoken about it at all in all this time. And it's like, what, 1997, so it's like 25 years. And he last year or the year before, he came to me and he said he wanted to talk about it. So we've been back to Wales together for the first time in February, and then we did a little bit of filming. I've got something to put up on YouTube of him talking about his experience while we were there, you know, what he remembers, and then a little bit of a conversation between us, which I kind of just put it together for a conference talk that I was doing. So now there's two of us talking, but there was previously only one, and we all completely remember the same thing. Unfortunately, John overdosed and died. It wasn't like an intentional suicide, but it was like, you know, that kind of you self-medicating your emotions. And he had problems with his back and the medication he was taking, and taking too much of everything and drinking as well. And he didn't survive himself. So we've all had trouble, you know, trying to get over it. And we don't really know why. I mean, I was the only one who was like terrified out of my mind to run, but I didn't see anything. And apart from the fact that we just had this huge craft over the top of us, which, yeah, all right, it's scary, but like to be so shredded, like all of us shredded. Like when I first spoke to Steve, I said to him, how did it leave you feeling? And he said, raw, exposed to the bone, like just flattened. And we all feel the same way, and I don't really know why, because we were all watching it and then went in, and then it was just like everyone went back to normal. And then afterwards we all disintegrated.
Yeah,
So
that's again something that I hear time and time again is the same what you just said at the end there, is that it all went back like to normal. Like some people will have the most bizarre experiences, and then they can awake from this experience. Not awake, because that's the wrong word, but they can the experience will end, and it's almost like it never happened until maybe a week or two later. Or for some people, it's even years later. But that keeps coming up time and time again. Do you think that these beings, G and Sasha, do you think they're using some kind of technology to help us forget these experiences? And it's just through chance or things popping back up in our lives that have kind of.
I'm not sure about that, because I've had some pretty shocking events in my life, and I live with somebody who was violent. Now, I completely forgot about so much, but then something happened and I remembered a load of stuff, and it's like, I think your mind has the ability to just erase things so you can just get on with life, because you've got to be able to function, right? You've got children, you've got to go to work, whatever. You know, your brain kind of protects you. So I don't know if it's them or if it's us, or maybe a little bit of both. But they're not very good at covering up memories, because in my experiences, I remember loads. So I don't think they are, or if they are, it's really shoddy, or they want me to remember, you know. But I don't know.
That is true. It's like me with my experiences. I didn't remember anything at all for many, many years. But then the minute it did come back, I remembered the most stupidest of details. I remembered how its feet looked pushing past these white little flowers that were growing in the wood. I remembered everything, even the smallest details like that. But for multiple years, never remembered a single thing about this sighting. Paul, you had
Sasha,
some. Sorry, go on, G.
I was just going to ask Sasha, when was her sort of last experience where you have memories? How long ago was that?
2012.
2012. Still a good 10 years ago, a good decade ago.
January the 16th. Yeah, they don't happen all the time, but we did have like 8 months of activity from January to August. Because they were kind of like, because the thing is it affects my whole family. It's not just me. There's other members in my family, and they're interested in them as sometimes more. And there was a period of time where we were just being constantly harassed. And it wasn't until I told them that if they didn't leave me alone, I was going to kill myself. Then they left me alone, and I really meant it, because I just couldn't take it anymore. I was a single mom, and I've got 4 kids, and they just wouldn't leave us alone. And all my kids are freaking out. My daughter's painting things of blue reptilians, big red eyes, big black cape things, all it, and it's really interesting actually, because of how memories change. And I've seen them as my kids have talked to me about some of the stuff that they've been through, how, like, say my daughter, she's seen these like blue reptilians in black capes with this ball of light traveling with them, and there was 3 of them. And then a little while later, she said something about it, and she said that they were black cloaks with blue light coming out of them. And I said, no, you said, and she painted a picture of this reptilian, basically. When I showed her it, her face, boom, she couldn't believe it. So the memories change and shift and morph. So that blue light that was next to it became the light inside the hood of the cape that they were wearing. But then when I showed her the picture that she painted, she remembered that it wasn't actually like that, and it was a ball of light. So so you can't trust your memories. You can't trust your memories.
Yeah. And it's I was just listening to you talk there, Sasha, how you said it pushed you right to the very end, like you was getting to your wit's end with this. And we had a caller in on last week called Robert, and he said exactly the same, that it pushed him so far. I wonder if that's, I mean, I don't think that would be the intentions of these beings. Maybe it is, I'm not sure. Maybe it's just that we're not able to function what's actually happening to us. What would you say?
Well, I knew they were there. I knew what they were doing, and I was talking to him, and I kept calling him. I called him a chicken shit coward for hiding. Well, you're just like, I'm just this woman. What you doing, hiding from me? And I know what you're doing, and I know you're here, and I know what you're doing. And and then the next thing you know, it stood in my bedroom doorway showing itself to me. But it told me how I couldn't see it ever, because they can like refract light on a photon level. You just would never be able to film them, see them, photograph them, anything. So I don't believe any photographs or anything, because they have got the technology to just make it impossible.
Yeah.
So I knew they were there, and so I think that maybe they were trying to see how far it would go, or if I would willingly interact with them, or allow this or whatever. And then it wasn't until after I'd seen it and realized, and this was months later, because one of my kids came to me and told me about something that had gone on with them, and I realized it was that night that it happened in January. So this is 4 months later. They're recounting to me an event that happened in January, and I just pieced it all together. It was like boom, 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 boom in my head, and I just completely couldn't take it. Stood in the kitchen, and I was just like silently saying all this stuff to him, and that I was completely freaking out. Like, they're mine, you can't have them, and you hear all this stuff about contracts that people say. I don't know if it's true. I was like, if they're out, you can't have them. All contracts are off. Blah blah blah. I don't even know what I said. I was out of my mind, and I was like, one of my kids was going to be starting school, and I was like, he's going to be saying all this stuff like he says to everybody that comes in the house. Do you see the aliens? Do you see the aliens? So I'm like, what if you go to school saying this stuff?
Yeah.
Like, it was just too much. And then so that's why I threatened what I threatened, and then it stopped. And my friend Paula, she was there. He used to say all stuff to her. Owls can talk, and all this lot. And then I didn't normally bring it up, because I don't like to prompt anything. You don't want to put anything in their heads or anything, and just let him, if he was talking about it, let him talk. And then I said something about him being in his bedroom, and he went, oh, they weren't in my bedroom. Anyway, they've gone away now. They said bye-bye. And then he wanted to sleep with his bedroom window, his curtain open, light off, all this that he would never before, because he was too terrified. So
Right.
I don't think they care. I don't think they've got the capacity to care. But I just don't think that they wanted their product to self-destruct. It's as romantic as that for me.
Wow.
So
Yeah, I think you just put that beautifully there. I think that's a really good, first-hand explanation from someone that's actually living with this stuff going on to put it that way across. Because, you do get a lot of people that do believe they are love and light, and then I've spoke to people like Steve Merrer who says the complete opposite, and it's not always a nice experience. And I think you've had a mixture of the both, by the sound of that there. Paul,
yeah,
so
I've had some
sorry,
mad
Sasha.
stuff happen that wasn't terrifying, but I don't know what it is still.
Yeah. No, it's absolutely amazing. Like I said, thank you so much for sharing that as well, because you are dealing with it firsthand, and it's always nice to get that perspective.
Yeah.
Paul, so I often think about this, and I've been wanting to ask you this for a while now, actually. So you've talked to a lot of people that have dealt with these cases. Some of these people have had really strange experiences, and they open up to you, they tell you their stories and retell their accounts. Do you ever worry, or have you ever had an experience with like Men in Black characters? Because we hear about these all the times, and I often worry about that myself. But
No, Bob has.
yeah,
When things were happening in 2017, and it was like a drip feed of weirdness. As I don't know if people realise, but Bob works in a charity shop 5 days a week, and if I'm in town, I'd call in and see him. And over a period of, I think, a couple of weeks, he started saying that he lived at Salshore at that time in a chalet. So he'd walk into work, which would be about a mile and a half away. And he'd say there's a black car, a big unusual black car, and it passes me on the road, he says, and then it passes me again, and then he'd see it on way home. And he was just going on about this, and we were up on cliff tops. There's lots of things. 2017, it were really active. And then I went to, you can see, so he weren't living in one of our flats at the time, so I didn't see him as often. So I went into the shop on this occasion. He's normal. Anybody who knows Bob, Sasha knows him, you know what I'm talking about. He's a really positive guy.
Yeah.
Always happy, always smiling. And
Really upbeat.
yeah, so I went into the shop. I said, "You all right, Bob?" And he just kind of looked down. And it was unusual. I thought, well, I must have done something to offend him. I don't know. So he said, and he went, "I'll tell you in a minute." And then he said, "I had a visit yesterday." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, and he was house sitting for a friend on Cardigan Road. Great big detached house with a lovely, great big garden. And this guy had a dog. And he asked Bob if he'd just house sit for him for, I don't know, a week, 2 weeks, I don't know what length of time. He said, and well, the first night, so prior to what happened, it's an enclosed back garden with a big fence around it, so I'm forgetting about this. He said, dog just suddenly looked up. I'm watching television in just TV light on, nothing else. And I looked to the conservatory, and there's a figure, and it looked like Zorro, this hat. And he says, dog went nuts. He says, and I let dog out, there was nothing there. So locked gate at side that's got a brick wall above it. It sort of goes round in an arch, so you can't get in. There says somebody fit could get over the fence and into somebody else's garden. So that was that. So things progressed. And then he became a little bit moody with this particular day. He said, there's a knock at door. And this is after all the car business. He says, and I can see two tall, dark figures at door. And glasses obscured. It's Flemish glass. So these daft things, don't I? But that's what it was. So anyway, he said, and there's a porch. He said, I open first door and I can see them then because there's obscure glass in front of me. He says, and because I was expecting it to be two police officers. He says, that's kind of stature that I got. He says, and I looked at them. He said, and the faces looked like powder. They looked like flower colour. It were really odd. And they're looking down at me. Now, I'm not tall. I'm 5'6", but Bob's only about 5'1". So everybody's going to look down at Bob kind of thing. He said, so what do you want? And so don't quote me word for word, but they said something like, we're watching you. You've seen something you shouldn't have seen. And he opened the door and they started talking to him. And then he became very frightened. I'm not going to say what they were saying because I can't remember just off the top of my head. And you'll always get some clever devil saying you never said that or you didn't write that. Do you know what I mean? When you wrote about it in Truth Proof. I'm not a walking dictaphone. So he said, I shut the door. It's daylight. And ran upstairs because I wanted to see where they'd go. He said, when I get upstairs, he says, they've gone and I can see down to my right and to my left on Cardigan Road. What he didn't realise straight away was it were night. It was daylight when he were talking to him. So he doesn't know what happened there. He's got no there's nothing. There's no memories in between that. But it was daylight when he spoke to him, sort of evening time, but still light. And when he got upstairs, it was dark. The next morning, when he got up to go to charity shop, all power were off. His alarm clock weren't working, and he were late. He were late for work. He said, I went into the cellar. He said, and all switches looked correct. Everything, nothing had fused. He says, but I flicked them down, flicked them up, flicked them down. He says, and then power come back on. So that's his story. I know you were asking if I'd had one, but I haven't really got a story of Men in Black, to be honest with you. I've had a lot of strange experiences. I had to laugh when Sasha were describing the alien. It's just kind of old with wispy white hair. I thought she's talking about me. You know what I mean? But no, it's just everything's bizarre, isn't it? I ain't got an answer for any of it. I just haven't.
So do you believe then, Paul, that they do exist and they are here to silence people?
What they Men in Black, Ben? I don't know. I mean, they've got dark suits on and what essentially we would call fedora hats, but I don't know. It's certainly frightening.
I think they want to know what we've been exposed to, what we know, what we've seen.
Yeah.
You know, like I have had an experience with them, but like you saying that Bob said they look like chalky, but the ones that I saw looked like the faces were kind of made out of melted wax.
Yeah.
But they had the.
I don't believe that. I do believe they exist.
Black jacket. Yeah.
I just believe that
I don't think they were people.
Do you know, I tell a lie, and I don't want to take over conversation here because G might want to add something to this, but in Night People, I was with my cousin Janet, and I don't know how old we were. We were only little. We weren't allowed in the woods. The parents wouldn't let us. We weren't old enough to go into Old Dennerby Woods. And we went up into the woods on Edgett Field, and to us it looked like a rock face. It weren't. It were probably about 4 or 5 foot of flat sandstone. And me and my cousin Janet, I don't know, we'd have been probably 10 or 11 years old. We were below this rock place, and we were making little lean-to shelters and all sorts of imaginary things that kids do. And I looked up and stood on the rock is this bloke. Similar to what I've just described for Bob. I'd forgotten. He says he's got a black suit on. He's got shiny black shoes. And his eyes seem to be going really weird, backwards and forwards. And I don't mean they were black. I'd love to say they were black, but I can't remember. And I shouted Janet to run, and we ran to the fence, which were only about 20 foot away, and got over into the field. Janet didn't even register at first, and she looked up because there's massive gaps in between me and her seeing each other. And I think what last time were about 8 years ago, and we'd not seen each other for 20 years. First thing she said to me was, "Can you remember when you ran away and left me with that strange man stood above that stone?" So yeah, well, that a Men in Black experience, I don't know. It was just an unusual one. In a woodland, a man in a suit. It was just a strange one. You see, we shouldn't be too quick to attach. And I mean myself in this as well, an unexplained phenomena label onto everything that happens, because there's bound to be weird things happen within us lives, isn't there?
Yeah. Do you want to chime in?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say that, the phenomena of Men in Black is something that I've researched quite a bit, and, I definitely think there's something to it, because, again, it's one of those situations where there's just too many people over a course of, decades that have reported strange occurrences. So there's got to be something behind it. My only thing is that, back in the 1940s, when there was a lot of spat of stuff going on, in the first cases of recorded Men in Black, just after the Kenneth Arnold incident, I think it was, with Murray Island, and we get the typical image of black suit, fedora, but I think ufology evolves like anything evolves, and that was a very much an outfit that was keeping of its time frame. Whereas I think, people in current day, in 2022, could be having visits from Men in Black, but they don't look like what we think Men in Black look like. And you have to keep an eye out for strangeness. That's the main thing that you need to keep an eye out for, rather than the description.
Hello?
And definitely when I was spending some time living in the States, I had a few strange occurrences, which I wouldn't say fit within the typical Men in Black situation, but definitely felt like being monitored.
Yeah. Brilliant, G. We've got another guest on, Truth Finder. Are you there?
Yep. Hello. Basically, what's going on is, right now, I've got you on my YouTube page, innit, and we're exposing you of who you are, who you really are. We know who you are, and you're getting it.
I don't know who the hell that is. I've just muted him. Never
Oh, yeah. Okay, so Illuminati. Right, hang on. Let's do now.
It makes the lives more interesting. Yeah, no, G, what you're saying there was bang on, mate. Like you said, it's not always about the appearance, but sometimes more about the strange things that the Men in Black come with. I always think when I think of the Men in Black, and I'm going to get off this topic in a second, but I always think back to the Gary McKinnon case. You know, when Gary McKinnon hacked into NASA and he found the files that said non-terrestrial officers. That always, to me, rings Men in Black type-esque sort of stuff. Paul, another question I really want to ask you is that on the East Coast, around Dalby as well, Dalby Forest and places like that, the North Yorkshire moors, there's been lots of studies into mutations, like cat mutations. Is that stuff still going on?
I've not
Do you
found
think there's any
anything. That
connection?
don't mean it's not going on. It seemed to peter out late 2018, early 2019, prolific in 2017-16 along eastern North Yorkshire coast. I spoke to somebody only yesterday who's been finding things in North Yorkshire, in forests of North Yorkshire. I haven't got enough information about it. He sent me some information. He sent me one picture. Is this the same fella that's back?
He's not back, he's gone.
No it is. But no, I don't know. Not at the moment, not to my knowledge.
Sorry, I'm just going to try and get rid of this guy. Oh, sorry, no, that's sorry, that was a normal person.
That was actually somebody we wanted.
Swear, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here, mate.
Yeah, can you hear us all okay?
Yeah, I can hear you well. You've got some really
Brilliant.
good
Fire away,
subjects on tonight. Very interesting subjects. Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah,
Thank
be
you.
careful of the trolls, by the way. It's good to vet them before you let them in.
Your audio's a bit. I can't hardly hear you there.
I'll ring back on the other phone in the next couple of minutes.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, sorry about that, guys. I'm not sure. Obviously, I can't monitor everyone that's coming through before they get through, if you know what I mean. So we're gonna get some people like that. But the only thing I can do is try and be as quick as possible to get them out.
I want to know what he thinks we're doing, though. I'm curious now.
Yeah. No, I have no idea.
I got accused of being a woman in black once, and I was like, and I was apparently interfering with this guy in his bedroom. I was like, yeah, in your dreams, pal, literally.
Yeah.
A woman in black. I worked for the cover up apparently as well. Someone said that to me. They actually told me that the woman in black in the video that I'd done was part of the cover up. I was like, that's me. Well,
you know, if I don't know this guy, but if they'd have come on and asked some questions that were challenging and sensible, wouldn't you?
Yeah. No, that's always healthy. I mean, I always encourage people to challenge some of the things that we say, but when you first come on and your opening line is "I'm going to expose you," it's never a good.
Hilarious.
So, just a question to the room, you guys that are here with me. Do you think that the phenomena is picking up or slowing down?
I think it's just
when we look back into the 80s, it just seemed like we had one big case after the next, and now those big cases don't seem to come around so much.
Nobody wants to come to ufology. Ufology is dangerous. Ufology is insane. It attacks everyone, chews them up, spits them out. If they can manage to survive it, we might believe you. But until then, it's just like with everybody, and who wants to join in with that?
Yeah,
it gets toxic. The whole subject's toxic at times. I mean, they are good. There's good people amongst it, but I think same as Sasha. I don't think anything's really any different. Perhaps we're evolving a little bit and becoming a little bit more inquisitive, a little bit more accepting of the fact that this stuff is real. And Sasha, Jay, Ben, we're more open to talk about it to people that we wouldn't have talked about it 2 years ago. I think
No, I
that's
definitely agree.
Yeah,
Definitely,
absolutely.
100%. I mean, you know, I couldn't envision myself having this conversation publicly 10 years ago.
no.
And certainly not about my experience. But it's like I was saying, Ben, I definitely feel like the whole thing evolves, like everything. Logic only dictates that everything evolves and moves forward. And it's like I commented to you, I think a few weeks ago, about how you know, seemingly from a ufology point of view, abduction doesn't seem as prevalent in the last 10 years as it has been in, say, the last 30 in ufology. There's less people, more people claim sightings in present day than they claim abduction. But I said to you that that doesn't mean that the abductions have stopped. It just means that they've got better at doing it. Because anybody who does something enough, you evolve, you become better at doing it, you learn from mistakes. And that's why I think, you know, back in the 40s or 50s and, you know, even as much as the 70s with like Travis Walton and stuff like that, they were at a time where a lot of people who got abducted remembered a lot of detail about it. But when I had my experience in the 80s, I only remember snippets of it. And now I think in 2022, a lot of people could be getting abducted and not even have any recollection of it.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually, because when I had that rant at them, I told them to stop frightening us, all the rest of it. Now, I have had weird stuff happening, and my fella's had a dream where a grey came running out of the cupboard and stuck its hand on his face, and his head was buzzing. So I was like, well, that is what they do, but there's no recollection. But I did tell them to stop frightening us. So maybe they have been doing stuff, and like you said, they've got better at it, or there's been a point in time where they've wanted people to remember for whatever reason, because I think they like watching us interact with each other and try and figure it out. I really think that they're really observers, you know, and what we're thinking, how we act with each other, the friendships that we formed that are really close, and the conversations that we have that are very in depth because of that. The internet has completely changed the game, and I think that part of what they really like is seeing all of this development of us and us coming to terms with it. Now, I don't know what would happen if we did come to terms with it. Would this sort of like open the floodgates for more experiences, or you know, or are they just not interested anymore? I just don't even know. But Bob is intuitive, isn't he? He told me that he doesn't think it's over for me. But I've had huge gaps in my experience. There's just been massive gaps. It's not, but then that 1 year where there was quite a lot of interaction with all of us. But yeah, so it's a bit of a.
Do you think the reason, Sasha, is for your experiences? Do you think that they're trying to manipulate you in some way, or what do you think their involvement with you is? Have they ever opened up and talked?
I don't know. I think it's something to do with hormones. Like, I don't think they can synthetically produce them, but I think some of us are just full on. I'm like hyper. We're all hyper in my family. We're completely like, I'm like a weather front. I'm like a nuclear power station. If you could tap into my energy, I could probably power the whole street. You know, I don't, and like, all my kids are the same, but I've seen that they come at times of developmental stages with the kids. So I can only assume that there's hormonal changes. That's the only thing that changes us when we're growing up, is hormones. And if they come in at certain ages, like everyone reports the same ages, it's like young, 4, 7, like 12, especially teenage years, and then in your when you're a young adult, and then you're like you're 25, and when you get to 25, you start remembering everything, you know. And there seems to be this pattern, and I felt that with the kids, it's something to do with the hormones.
Yeah, and that rings true in the paranormal phenomena as well. I mean, the Enfield poltergeist, a lot of speculation there was because it was around the teenage girls or pubescent girls. I wonder what that is. Maybe that's an energy thing. Maybe they give
Yeah.
energy.
I think because we have abilities and we're kind of like in between worlds, aren't we? So we're kind of interacting with the other side in some ways, even if it's unskilled. And we have a lot of energy. And like me, there was one day when I was stood in my kitchen, I had my back to the microwave. My friend was making a coffee, and my other friend was here. And I'd just met them. I'd just moved into this house, and one of them was famous. And I was kind of like, you know, a bit like, woo. And I kind of just took a step backwards, and this glass jar flew off the microwave and landed in the middle of the kitchen. Now, I did have activity in that house a lot, but I wonder if sometimes our energy kind of spikes out in weird directions because it's real. Our energy is real. It's actually measurable, you know. Can it interact, like, because it was on top of the microwave, it had a few little metal things in it and a fuse. So I don't know if like something to do, because I blow up technology like you won't believe. Like, is it something to do with the way that we contain our energy, or it's, I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with that, but
What do you think of energy, Paul? You're a big believer, I believe.
I think Sasha, I don't think there's a good way to describe it, Sasha. I think you're making a good point. And I think I've said it before, times of emotional stress, bereavements, people claim to see deceased partners and loved ones. Who's to say they're not? Who's to say that it's not the emotional energy and the difference in the way that we're thinking and channeling that thought that isn't the concentrated thought that isn't allowing these things to come through. So yeah, just like with meditation and other things that where we can seem to access these other realms, what you're talking about. And
my grandparents died 6 months apart. Now, I was convinced my granddad hadn't died, that he'd gone on a special mission, right? Because he was part of MOD, blah, blah. Anyway, we were walking to see my great-grandma, and they walked past us together, and my sister saw them. So, and they looked solid, they looked real, and we know it was them. It was you just couldn't mistake them for anybody else.
What did you do?
Know? I just stopped walking, and I turned to my sister, and I said, "Did you see that?" And she went, and then we looked, and there was nobody there. And this was a long path. There was nowhere for him to go. And I think those are like called, I think, crisis apparitions.
Do you think
that's a good name for them?
Specifically designed for you?
Because I didn't believe he was dead. But when my grandma had died, I was completely destroyed. Like, they wanted to see that. I heard them talking about wanting to take me to see a child psychologist, which in my head was like the child catcher out of Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. So boom, bottled it all up, because I thought, oh my God, you know. And then in my little head, I decided, because he was in the Navy, he was a police officer for the MOD. I was like, oh no, he's gone on a special mission, and they've had to pretend that he's died. And I completely believed that. And then when they walked past me, I was like, I knew that my grandma died, because I'd seen her die. You know, she died slowly of cancer. It was horrible. So I knew that they were together, and that meant that he couldn't be here anymore. But they won't let me go to his funeral, you see, because I was so upset at my grandma's funeral. They won't let me go to my granddad's. So that was all part of the ruse, as far as I was concerned. But yeah, so there's a lot going on, and I think that and also I've got to say that actually when I was 4, I died. So I don't know if it's because, you know, obviously they've brought me back, but I don't know if that's because I've been over that, where I've come back a bit different, or there's a door open, or I've come back with stuff that's stuck to me, or whatever. But you know, I often wonder if that's why I've had more paranormal experiences than UFO ET stuff. It's just been constant.
Yeah. What was you going to say, G? Do you have something to add?
I was just going to say that, you know, obviously humans have been preoccupied with the sense of energy since ancient times, with the Chinese, with the, you know, the chi energy, etc. I definitely believe in energy imprint. And I think that can be generated from a number of different things, whether it be a traumatic situation. So when something traumatic has happened in a room, you can walk in and you can feel that. energy because it's still left sort of seeping in the walls like damp. But then you can also, Sasha mentioned like crisis apparitions. I do think as well, there's like energy photographs where, you know, an imprint of somebody gets left behind, an image, and that can be seen either within a few moments of death or years down the line. That snap can just come and reveal it to somebody who's got that sense of perception. You know, and people do have different senses of perception. That's been proven by science. So, you know, that's my
brilliant.
feelings.
We're coming up to the hour mark now, guys. Thank you all so much for joining me on this chat tonight. It's been great to be joined by so many like-minded people. You know, we can share our thoughts without the ridicule and stuff. And Sasha, it's nice to meet you as well, face to face for the first time. Paul, me and you are getting to know each other a lot better these days as well, which is great. And G, thank you for sharing your story as always, mate, 'cause I know that's not always the easiest story to share. You guys in the comments have been amazing as well. I'm going to give everybody here now a chance just to plug their channels, their websites, etc. So, Paul, if you want to tell people where they can find you.
Yeah, well, the website's truthproof.uk, and lots of UFO-related reports on that website that you'll not find anywhere else. I always say if people want to use them, just give us credit for them. They're there, and I don't mind. The books can be obtained on the website, and the Kindles are on Amazon. And we do our own live stream on a Thursday, 7 p.m, and that's the Truth Proof live stream. So that's as much as I can tell anyone. Thank you.
Cheers, Paul. Sasha, do you want to give people some instruction of where they can find you?
Well, I've got a monthly podcast with Paranormal Panorama, which is called Citizen Sane. And that's on the 1st of the month, and it's on lots of, you know, the download sites. It's not like, you know, kind of structured like this. And my YouTube is Paranormal Instigator, and there's loads of stuff on there about all my gibberish and some old shows and things like that that might be interesting. Lots of different guests. So that's about it for me at the moment. I've been on a go slow.
Perfect. Thank you, Sasha. G?
Yeah, guys can find me at the YouTube channel The Vault. We kind of very, very similar to the 401 Files. We cover ufology, cryptozoology, ancient mysteries, paranormal hauntings and ghosts. Do that through this story time, which is pretty much where I bring you stories from all those different areas of the paranormal throughout history. And then G-Star Vault, which we analyze and investigate footage and content that's been shared on the web. But recently we've just started the Vault Sessions, which is a live show every first and third Tuesday of the month. And we've had Ben from the lovely 401 Files on the Vault Session so far. And this week we had Andy McGrath from Beasts of Britain on, and hopefully now that I've met them this evening, I can reach out and ask Paul and Sasha to come on to the Vault Sessions at some point in the future.
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent.
Brilliant. Brilliant. I think we peaked at like maybe 101, 102 people viewing at any one point tonight, which is amazing. And like I said, thank you absolutely to everybody that's tuned in to listen to us tonight. It's been absolutely incredible, like I said, to bring so many like-minded people together. I won't hold you on too much longer now. And on that note, you guys take it easy, stay safe wherever you are in the world, look after yourselves, and if you're in a position to do so, then please do look after somebody else as well. Thank you.